Serious, friends of sociopaths, psychopaths, what was your most uncomfortable moment with them? My sister is a sociopath. It took me a lot of years to realize this and stop rationalizing it. I'm a diabetic and have been in comas. During the last one in 2015, after a year of no contact, she showed up at the hospital saying I had expressed to her that my wishes were to not resuscitate. About 12 of my friends shouted her down and I woke up 3 days later on my own. If I had coded during that time, however, there would have been a lot of grey area around if they were allowed to revive me. About 4 months later she took out a life insurance policy on me and asked me to sign it. I said no lol. I no longer speak to her. Oh man, this blew up. I should add that I now have very clear wishes notarized and copies kept with my doctors and trusted friends. She's not taking me out that easily. Thank you guys for being concerned. It's great advice for everyone in a medical situation to have just in case. My ex would say headlines. Headlines which meant I would be headlines in tomorrow's newspaper because he was going to kill me. Mine would take me out into the middle of nowhere with 2 of his friends to show me where he was going to bury me. I didn't even think of trying to leave until one of the friends died and the other was in prison. Super fun times. Glad yours is an ex as well. I've been long time friends with a sociopath. He is honestly like my brother. We have developed this relationship that basically treats me like his moral compass, but it doesn't always work. He is still manipulative and cruel at times, and he does only truly care about himself, but he tries to be a good person because he doesn't want to be an asshole. This being said, my most uncomfortable moment with him would have to be when he was telling me about watching some guy almost die. He was telling me how he knew he should have stopped watching and helped him, but he was too interested in what the outcome would be if he didn't help. It was creepy to know that as hard as he may try to be a decent person, sometimes he still can't help himself. He once tried to manipulate me to come in and work basically 50 hours, 10 of which would be off the clock so that I didn't get overtime, because he knew that if he could keep labor low on his shift he could get a promotion. He would also expressly lie to my face about giving me a break, saying verbatim, "I'll come back here in a moment and take over, so that you can go on break." Then he would just never come. Then when the time has passed to where a break would be irrelevant, that is, 30 minutes before my shift is over, he'd offer again. I have a friend who's a pathological liar. He's also mostly Scottish in heritage, northern Scotland, where the Viking influence is. He's 6'8", 350 pounds when he's watching his weight, 400 plus when he isn't, and there is a lot of muscle to go with everything else. The lies aren't all that awful most of the time. He's known as a very entertaining storyteller and everyone knows he'll embellish greatly from time to time. But he can't keep a girlfriend, apparently he can't be honest, is a pathological cheater. The lies catch up with his relationships in a few weeks at most. One day we were in a taxi together and he got the idea that the driver was taking a route that was unnecessarily long. He stopped the cheerful story he was telling me mid-sentence. His face changed and he barked at the cab driver in a voice I'd never heard, loud and angry and aggressive. The cab driver immediately pulled over and let us out without paying, and a good thing too. I think my friend was about to kill him. I was petrified in my seat. I felt like he might kill everyone in range. I was terrified. It was the last time I spent time with him, though I'd known him for 20 years. I later learned that he won't associate with someone after they've seen him snap, as one of his other ex-friends put it. When he would tell a story that I was a part of and make up huge lies of what happened. Even sometimes switch his role and mine. And I would just awkwardly nod my head and wonder if he truly remembered it that way. He had a gas-powered pellet gun and we were 13 years old, and it was one of my first times being high. He had me against the wall and gave me 5 minutes to choose between him shooting me in the genitals or in the head. If I didn't choose, he said he was just gonna go nuts. I just kinda fidgeted in place saying, "You're gonna kill me." I was 13 and high, and at the end of the 5 minutes he told me he was ducking with me. He also emptied a huge box of matches into the sink one time, and when we all told him not to, he called us pussies and lit it all on fire. He was a major pyro. I'm pretty sure he's in jail now. I'm 19 and he's 20. Probably when I found out he was dating 3 other girls at the same time, and the girls and I exchanged screenshots of conversations with him. How creepily similar the way he spoke to us all. Charming, nice dude, unless you don't give him what he wants. I dated someone who I now believe is a sociopath. The most uncomfortable thing while we were dating was that he would constantly whisper things in my ear in public, in earshot of other people, like, "Do you think I look hot right now, or do you think I'm cool?" And the first few times I thought he was joking, so I laughed, and he'd get angry. He wanted a serious answer. He wanted me to tell him how much I wanted to jump his bones right there in front of all of our friends, while they were watching and listening. I'd get lectured afterwards like, "You know, you really insulted me personally when you laughed at me in front of everyone." He could also cry on cue to get what he wanted, and as soon as he got what he wanted, it would instantly switch off and he'd turn very serious and tell me what a horrible person I was. The instant emotional switches are disarming. When he broke up with me, I went from being his favorite person in the world to instantly at the very bottom of his sheet list. He laughed when I cried on multiple occasions, calling me ridiculous. What's very alarming about people like him is how many people they can get on their side with their charm. None of his current friends know anything about his behavior behind closed doors. And they're all new people. All the people who caught on when we were dating are gone from his life. He has convinced his new friends that I'm a psychopath because I tried to tell others what happened, so whenever I say anything about what a creep he is, I get brigaded by the new people who are now being manipulated. Also, he is completely dead in the face and dies until you interact with him, and then it's like he becomes animated. I dated one once, didn't realize it until much later when the abuse was so thick I couldn't breathe. The one situation that sticks out the most was one night, completely unsolicited. He looked at me solemnly and said, "If you ever left me, I would find you and kill you." 11 years of shit like that. Suffice to say, I'm glad I've got an entire country between myself and him now. In high school, my boyfriend at the time and I shared a math class together. It was well known we were dating, so I would always take him his homework via teacher's request if he missed. He skipped a lot. I broke up with him over Christmas break. He cheated on me. Math teacher obviously still assumed we were together, so he asked me to bring him his homework. I did. Got to his house, wanting to drop it off at his doorstep. He told me to come in and explain it to him. He locked his bedroom door and started saying shit like, "If I can't have you, then no one else can. I could get you back in a second. Just admit it," etc. Then the true kicker: if I killed you or if you died, I would keep your body in my closet or hung behind my door just to have sex with it. Disclaimer: I never had sex with him and I think that killed him. He then proceeded to try to make out with me and jam his hands down my pants. He actually thought it was endearing and had no idea why I was so upset. I got out, called my mom to pick me up, and ran back to the school. He lived close. Terrifying. To this day I'm still horrified about it and him. Last I heard, he was trying to be a magician, looks like Charles Manson, and is in and out of psych wards. My sister, who I no longer have contact with, has psychopathic tendencies. My worst moment was about 5 years ago. She was showing me a new knife of hers, a giant blade with serrations down the back. I remember looking in her eyes and there was this cold, alien look to them. The hairs on the back of my neck rose and I had this idea she was going to stab me. I realized my instincts were picking up on her thinking about stabbing me. She didn't stab me, but I kept thinking about it and I truly think she was imagining what it would be like to stab me with her new knife. My brother is a sociopath, as well as a homeless hero and junkie. For the most part he stays hidden from view and away from my family. During his active times where he comes around looking for money from family members is the most uncomfortable, because when he doesn't get it he resorts to burglary. Having to leave home not knowing if you'll be burglarized is stressful. I wish he would just OD or go to prison already. It would be so much better for everyone. Did he exhibit sociopathic behaviors prior to becoming addicted to heroin? Because what you describe sounds less like a sociopath and more like a typical addict. Just curious. BC, I'm in recovery and I've done some pretty shitty things in active addiction, but I'm certainly not a sociopath. Yes. He started displaying sociopathic tendencies as early as 8th grade. It was around that time his lies became destructive to further self-goals, his duck-you attitude to authority became entrenched, and he found in our mom a weakness that he could exploit. From there it just built and he started getting into opiate pills around age 18-19. Married 1. Last straw was the day I caught his reflection as I passed by. Pure evil and hatred in his eyes. I told him I was leaving the following week. He said, "If I ever see you somewhere with someone else, I won't say a word to you." I said okay. He then added, "I'll just walk up to you and shoot you in your pretty face." I was moving some things out and looked under the bed for a pair of shoes. Found his guns, fully loaded and out of their cases under his side of the bed. I went to the cops. Nothing came of it. Fast forward and he remarries before the ink is dry on the divorce. New wife shoots him in the head and kills him in his sleep. Proceeds to heal herself by ODing on his pain pills. Yeah. I sleep better these days. I remember from a very early age that my mom would just stand in the entrance to my room with a knife. This didn't happen very often, maybe 2-3 times a year. When I was 9, I finally asked her why she would do this. I'll never forget how she said this. She looked me dead in the eyes and said that I was a mistake and she was deciding if she should do what she should have done a long time ago. I asked to move in with my grandma a week later. Thinking about how she said it still gets my heart racing 22 years later. I don't know if I can accurately describe it, but every single hair on my body stood straight up. I was paralyzed with fear and I felt like if I moved too suddenly she would strike. Backstory: Mom had me when she was 16 and regularly told me that I ruined her life. She was a habitual drug user and alcoholic. She told me that if she had the money she would have had an abortion. I'm an ex-friend of a sociopath. I think it was when we were hanging out and we started arguing about me going to his house. I had left my wallet there and I told him this and told him we needed to go back so I could get it. He then started claiming that his parents didn't like me and didn't want me at his house. He said since they weren't home that would just make it worse. I just kept saying I need my damn wallet and that he could get it for me. He proceeded to call me selfish and a monster for arguing with him. Like he yelled it in my face in a public area. I was shocked and had nothing to say. Then he proceeded to act like nothing happened. Asking me if we should get food, etc. I eventually got my wallet back from him. He didn't spend any money of mine or anything, but needless to say we aren't friends anymore. Honestly, I didn't even consider him a sociopath until telling my therapist about how he manipulated me into thinking everything was my fault and how me being better mentally was never enough. She basically told me straight up he's a sociopath and it clicked. He used me just to fill his ego. My sister feels nothing but rage. When she doesn't feel rage, she feels, literally, nothing. She spends her life manipulating everyone around her and satisfying that rage. She mercilessly abused me growing up. She tried to heal me 3 times before I moved out. No one believed me. Because I was older and larger, I was always considered to be the aggressor, even when I was being violently assaulted in my sleep. Living with her was a nightmare. The most uncomfortable moment between us wasn't something she did to me. It was something I considered doing to her. I'd been sent up to the crawl space to get an ornament. You could only access it from a ladder in the garage. When I grabbed it and turned around, she was at the top of the ladder, staring at me. There wasn't any room for her to come up. She was just waiting there, staring. She told me to get out of the way, and I told her I couldn't. There wasn't room for 2 people in the crawl space. She'd have to go back down the ladder. She immediately switched to rage. She said she hated me, and she wasn't going to let me down from the crawl space. It was 110 degrees in there, and I was already exhausted. I remember thinking, she's at the top of a ladder, over a cement floor. I could make this stop. I'd just say it was an accident. I'm only 12. No one would convict me. As soon as I thought that, her face suddenly went blank, and she went back down the ladder. I dated one a bit over a decade ago. He fits the description of a sociopath more than a psychopath, but he's also narcissistic. We dated on high school for a little over a year. Aside from the constant gaslighting, lies, manipulation and threats, he was basically a shitty person who warped my mind so much that I actually believed I'd be nothing without him. Whether driving erratically with me in car when I questioned him, or threatening physical violence on me and my family if I broke up with him, he was truly terrifying by the end of our relationship. The absolutely most uncomfortable terrifying moment was when he put a loaded hunting rifle in my face. He was addicted to weed. I don't believe weed is a dangerous drug at all. But he was so psychology warped that he believed he was going through severe physical and mental withdrawals if he went a day or two without smoking. One night he decided he was going to rob a small convenience store in his town for weed money. I stepped in front of his door to block his path and he pointed the gun at me. I bravely broke up with him a few days later, blocked him on social media, wouldn't answer his calls, and wouldn't answer the door when he showed up to my parents' house. It took months for him to get the point that I was serious. 12 years later and I still have nightmares of him. Honest, just normal conversation. We sensationalize it a lot in the media, but really having a conversation with someone that can't feel empathy is super boring. Me. Hey, I was driving to work today and some guy cut across 4 lanes of traffic and almost caused an accident. Sociopath friend. Okay me, alright, well, good taking to you. Roll my eyes. Interestingly enough, that relates to a major theory as to why sociopathy was not selected out of the human population. It carries with it an almost unmatched emotional stability. Almost nothing ruffles or scares a true sociopath. Quite possibly a lot of humanity's celebrated fearless leaders were sociopaths. They were able to do bold things and make brutal strategic decisions because they just didn't give a duck. Late to the game, but a friend of mine is a functioning psychopath. He has some severe anger issues but knows on a logical level, not an emotional one, what the implications of unleashing this are. He has no remorse. He could kill his mother and not care, but he knows this is morally wrong, even if he doesn't feel it's wrong. He can also be extremely manipulative with no remorse, and I've seen that come out to play sometimes and it isn't pretty. His ego is well endowed. He's got one of the highest pain tolerances that I've seen, part of a suspension group. And he's a really great cuddler. To meet him he's pretty strange, but all in all he's a decent person and I admire that he's decided to be better than his diagnosis. In high school and college, I knew a guy who kept file folders with information about people he knew. Actual file folders, labeled with their names. He would take notes on people he knew, what he thought of as their personality traits, their strengths that he might have to overcome, their weaknesses that he felt could exploit. These notes, along with his detailed analysis journals, because seriously, he analyzed everyone he knew, would go into his folders. I only saw these folders a single time, but I saw his note-taking almost every time I was around him. He didn't try to hide it. My best friend in high school was a sociopath, though I didn't realize it until later in life. He was good looking and astoundingly manipulative. He could talk pretty much any girl into bed. I was always a bit socially awkward and never got laid at that age. Whenever I confided in him that I liked someone, he would target them and duck them. They could be a nice girl, vegan, whatever, it didn't matter. He was that good. One of the most uncomfortable moments of my life was after we graduated and we were hanging out, and he got invited over to a girl's house who we graduated with. He knew I thought she was cute, said it was a party and that she had said she liked me. Well, we got there and it was only her roommate, and her roommate's boyfriend, and I didn't drive. He immediately goes in her room and ducks the girl. I was really pissed off and confronted him about it. Of course he made me seem like the asshole and told everyone that I invited myself over and made me feel sad and pathetic. I completely lost it and broke down crying in anger and felt ridiculous. Luckily her roommate was nice enough to drive me home. That was his MO. He wasn't violent or anything, but he liked hurting people emotionally. That night was the last night I ever spoke to him. I still feel stupid for being friends that long. I'm friends with a legit psychopath. I am on mobile, so I'll be brief. Not all psychopaths are necessarily a danger to society in the sense of physical violence, crazy or unreasonable. G is a close friend of mine. He is of shallow moral character, devious, manipulative, ready to screw anyone out of money and capable of physical violence when pressed. He's scary. That said, he is deeply intelligent, quick with a laugh, non-judging. You could talk to this guy about anything. He just doesn't care. He's a lot of fun to talk to or party with because he is so unique. I trust him to be himself. He has never screwed me over except I seemed to lose $ when I went into business with him. The most creepy he's been, and he knows I feel this way, is when we talk about moralistic standards for society. Essentially, he thinks the weak and stupid, but who makes that call, should be essentially weeded out, put on farms or something, shot. He gives no ducks about anyone else, save for a select few. He's not racist or sexist. He just thinks he's better than others based on smarts, looks, ability. He feels the dumb should not be allowed to thrive. Creepy, huh? I remember one conversation we had when Drumkai couldn't finish because we weren't getting anywhere with it. He won't change, he doesn't empathize. That said, he is a reasonable person. He's not gonna put his Docker, non-profiting thoughts into action. He's not interested. He likes money, and doesn't mind ripping people off. A businessman. Cunning. He exists for profit. That said, he'd help me out of any kind of a sticky situation, mostly for the fun of it. He's bored a lot, and understands he needs others. He likes me cause I'm interesting and feels I'm on his level. We speak openly about his psychopathy because I'm so interested in it. We've been friends for 7 years, were close for 3 years before he moved to another city. I stayed at his house in 2016 for a couple weeks. Feel free to Amma. My uncle. We found out things in bits and pieces. My dad and he worked together. He got my dad fired by saying all sorts of lies to their boss. And then pretended to be the white knight by offering him a job in another country where he's living. Money was tight back then and we were in a lot of debt, so dad agreed. He took him there, gave him work, but also made him a slave to his wife and kids who also live there. Dad was expected to cook food, wash the dishes, clean up the dining table after uncle's family ate and then eat himself. Yeesh. Dad didn't tell us until much later. According to the rules set by uncle, he wasn't to contact us often, should mind his own damn business even if his daughter didn't turn up home all night, and keep his mouth shut about work. Dad was miserable there and we couldn't do much because, again, that job was a welcome relief to us. Uncle, meanwhile, would come every night to our home, have breakfast and dinner that my mom generously cooked because his family was abroad, while bitching about my dad in front of us. One day I had finally reached my breaking point and I started crying because I felt horrible for dad who was trying so hard to make things right for us. Uncle just sat opposite to me smiling. Goddamn smiling. Will never forget that psycho grin on his face. Days later dad suddenly turned up unannounced at home. Turns out he'd been dumped by uncle to our city without prior notice. Dad had no guts to tell us what happened. We realized uncle was a psychopath later. He'd routinely mentally torture people and enjoy their misery while pretending to offer sympathies and help. He's in a powerful spot, so he offers his victims jobs. Once they accept, he makes them entirely dependent on him. He'd then put his victims under even more psychological stress, be it threatening to cut off ties or getting them fired if they disagreed with him. My dad was really messed up for days. He'd swing from utter despair to not speaking for days to extreme violence to absolutely broken. Got beaten up a bit for trying to calm him down. Dad could finally regain his mental sanity after we cut off all ties to that uncle. Last we heard, he wants to contact my dad because they're brothers and people realized what a piece of shit he is, so they avoid him too. Dad's like, oh hell no. She used to brag about her therapist diagnosing her as a sociopath, and then obviously deny it when it was ever brought up. I think the moment that put it all into perspective was when she manipulated me into having a threesome with her and her ex. She knew I was in love with her, because she thought it would get him to take her back. It goes a little deeper than that, but that's the gist of it. I have a lot of stories about my sociopathic former roommate, but one of the most uncomfortable moments I had with him was when he stared me dead in the eyes and asked, "Bravado, how can I express more realistic emotions?" And then he became slightly annoyed when my one answer was have them in the first place. To be fair, your answer was not helpful.